This is cooking in Ciudad de Mexico. The way I kind of cut this is, she's taking a lot of shots of like the space that we're at and stuff, so I'm just gonna cut like different segments of our conversation in between those kind of shots so we can kind of naturally talk, and I'll take the things that make you sound smartest.
Ignore me.
There came a point where I wanted to learn something. I've always loved cooking. I've always searched for the source for my own consumption and for my friends. And I had never seen it as something where I would want to return on investment. It was always just for self-gratification. So I got involved in many other areas. But eventually this opportunity came up to invest as one of very few partners in a restaurant that I was certain would be one of the best restaurants in the city, just because of the location and the way that it was structured. So instead of studying, I dove in the deep end, and it helps to get that perspective so you understand that nobody really knows what they're doing. And I think had I joined a smaller project or tried to do something myself in the beginning, you always have this doubt that perhaps you were lacking experience or you needed a better team. And in this case, I mean, we survived a long time. I think we were open 6 years perhaps, or 7. And it was always, I appreciate that most of these lists are not the most unbiased systems, but we were always top 50 in Mexico. Now there are many Spanish, kind of very high level Spanish restaurants, but at the time there weren't many Spanish restaurants, but popular Spanish restaurants, and this was the first kind of fine dining Spanish restaurant. We brought the chef over from Spain. So I got involved to understand it better, and what I realized is that even in the best places, perhaps now this is changing, and for example I know that Maximo and Rosetta more now have delved a lot into the ingredients and the sourcing. But at the time that we opened here, everybody was just cooking the same thing. You buy the cheapest possible pork and you cook it with very sophisticated equipment and you sell it at a premium. And I basically refuse to do that. It goes back to the principles. I mean, we charge a fixed premium on wine as well, so we have great importers now. Back then we didn't. So now we try and charge a small premium on very high quality goods and ingredients, and basically get rid of all the show. But no, I got involved to understand it better, and then here it was purely accidental as well. So we have worked with restaurants for a while. I used to have a drinks brand. I mean, I still do kind of. I have a small stake, but I sold it to a good friend who knows what he's doing. I love creating things, but I'm a terrible promoter and I'm a terrible salesperson.
I have I'm share that with you actually.
So I mean, with that, we talked to a lot of the restaurant owners and chefs that we are friendly with, trying to get them to move here, and obviously it was the worst time to ask. But one of the chefs that we invited saw the layout of the whole property, and I had wanted to start at the bottom and do a little path and go under the trees, and this was all garden before. And he said, no, you have to do it roadside. People have to walk past, even if it's noisy, see chairs and they'll sit there. I'm not my target market, to be honest, so I listened to him, and that's why we opened here first. And it was supposed to be just coffee and croissants and maybe a couple of sandwiches, and we got some really interesting clients coming in. So it turns out we have really nice people that live in the neighborhood. In the 1 year that we were open, I think we had 2 annoying clients, and I know that at the other place we had 5 a night, so it speaks highly of my neighborhood. And then we started getting in people through recommendation, through friends coming in from, I mean, the rest of the city, so from Polanco, Las Lomas, Condesa. And I believe that the reason is that we started serving very high quality produce in a nice environment, but also just getting rid of the bullshit. So famously, my quote was, it is the best possible food we can do, but the service is terrible. And I ended up having to help the service staff. We're also in a suburban neighborhood, so it's not that easy to get to for some of the trained waiters. So we had a great chef. The joke again was that he was more like my private chef because I'd spent so much time here cooking with him and just eating our trials. But it was a great experience, and we ended up doing food that was perhaps too sophisticated for the kitchen we had built. So we closed to allow our friends who have smart fish, and we're suppliers of smart fish, so we've been telling them since the beginning to move in, and they needed to reform the space a little bit. So before, my partner Anna, who produces Poción, which is the first kombucha brand in Mexico, and perhaps one of the only, certified ones. There's 2 or 3 now, but she used to produce over there. That was part of the reason we got the property. So we seeded a small part of her production for Smartfish, and we reformed our kitchen.
In the past, if you wanted super high quality or fancy food, it would go hand in hand with like this fancy, almost like elitist or whatever experience. Not to say that this, I'm sure it would be an expensive experience, but a more relaxed environment. And in some ways, you can enjoy the food a little bit more with a little less pretense.
Yeah, I think it becomes more intimate. We wanted somewhere to go for a glass of wine and some cheese in the evening, and there was nothing. So we, with the opportunity we had buying the equipment and the furniture, we set up what we would like to go to, and then try to convince everybody else that this is a good idea. And I like having somewhere where I can spend the afternoon myself. So if anything, the problem's been finding people who are willing to come to the suburbs to work. So that's been the only issue.
There's always a challenge.
Yeah.
Maybe, do you want to go check out the chickens now? I'd love to see that.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, great. Perfect. That was perfect. We nailed it.